Welcome to the QBC podcast, where we explore new paradigms in health and science that have a meaningful impact on our day to day lives. I'm your host, Meredith Oak, a curious coach and mom. I started a journey to overcome chronic fatigue and found myself in a whole new quantum universe. I believe new research shouldn't stay locked away in an ivory tower, and that wisdom can be found in many places and understood by all of us. To keep in touch with this podcast, the QBC free community, our episode guide, and all the show notes, please visit qbcpod.com, qbcpod.com. Let's get together to create the future we want to live in.
Okay, so I just felt like sharing a little story with you. Last November, my daughter, who is at school in Canada, sent me a short video of her and her friend Mitchell walking down the street in a blizzard, and they were soaking wet, like completely drenched. And I texted back, like, what happened? And she's like, Mom, I convinced Mitchell to jump in the river with me. And I'm like, you did in November? So where she's at school is right along the St. Lawrence River, right at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River. And on the south side is like the top of New York State. And on the north side is the bottom of Ontario, Canada. So it's cold. It was cold in the winter. And they just decided to try out a little CT. They decided to try some cold thermogenesis. And I was like, how did you get him to do that? She's like, I don't know, Mom. He just said he wouldn't. I was like, what did he say after? She said, I believe his words were epically brutal. But he was to the podcast that he was willing to give it a try. Anyway, I just thought, bless their hearts. And I just wanted to share that because you never know. We've been kind of going on about trying all these random things for years, and the kids are like, okay, whatever, Mom and Dad. And then they send you videos of jumping in the river in November in Canada. So you just never know what's going to happen. And I did follow up on that by sending her home after Christmas with a sauna blanket. Because I'm like, please have a way to warm up if you're going to be crazy. So she has her bond charge sauna blanket, which I think is a really good thing to have in the winter. If you would like to get one, you can go to bondcharge.com, put QBC in. They're a brand partner here, so I do like to mention them. And I am happy she has that in her cold college dorm. So, and also just, you never know. You never know who's watching. You never know who's paying attention. Also, God bless you, Mitchell. You are a good friend. Okay. On today's episode, I am talking to Oksana Hanson. And Oksana is just an amazing example of what can happen when you truly believe that the world is filled with infinite possibility and that the direction of your life is totally up to you when you get into the flow of, your true divine desires. And Oksana started out, she used to work as an executive in the technology industry in San Francisco, which is like, as deep in the trenches as you can get in certain ways, in certain types of mindsets. And her husband as well had that kind of job. And they have completely transformed their lives in terms of what they do and where they live and how they did it. So Oksana started out as a tech executive and is now the CEO of Quantum Wellness, Quantum Lens Wellness, where she supports people to transform their health by sharing what she's learned in the applied quantum biology certification and her coaching certification, and is now supporting people to live healthier lives instead of selling software. So nothing wrong with selling software. It's a great job. Wow. But that was apparently not Oksana's calling. So I love this conversation because we really talk through, how you make those kinds of decisions and what you need to do to make things happen. And how you just kind of like lean into it and live it out and make these huge changes. Oksana is also putting on a retreat this spring with our dear friend Carrie Bennett. Carrie is the lead faculty over at the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology. And she and Oksana are putting on a retreat. And I am going to tell you the details. I have them right here. I don't always have details, but today I have details. Okay, June 26th to 27th, 2025. In Franklin, Tennessee, near Nashville. This is an opportunity to be in person with all of the people that you listen to on this podcast, that you've probably interacted with online if you follow any of us on Instagram. And so I really recommend if that sound, if you had a little some real life event with everybody, follow up on that intuition. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but if you go to Carrie's website, carriebwellness.com/retreat, the info is all there as well. All right, everybody, enjoy my conversation with Oksana. I certainly did. All right, Oksana Hanson, super excited to have you on. You were just saying that you were I was saying an OG applied quantum biology certified practitioner. You're like, I was an early adopter. You came in back when we first launched in 2022.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Oh, it's my total pleasure. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story and hearing how you landed in a certification for applied quantum biology when you started out in sales and tech as an executive in San Francisco. That's quite the trajectory. I love it. Yeah. So tell us your story because, you've made a lot of leaps, and I think it's really helpful for people to hear how those leaps happened and what could be possible for them and be able to relate. So you were an executive in the San Francisco Bay Area. You were married. Did you have children at the time?
So is it okay if we start a little bit earlier than that?
Because you want to back up?
A little relevant. Yeah. Is that okay?
Please. Absolutely. Take us where we need to go to get the full trajectory.
So I was born and raised in Russia, and my family immigrated to the United States in late 1991. And it was because my mother had a very rare form of cancer called osteosarcoma, and it was in her jaw. It had moved up to her brain. And so from the age of 7 on, my life was filled with doctor's visits, hospitals, surgeries. It was this life kind of began without me even knowing it. And of course, because my mother was only 30 years old at the time, I just assumed and I thought, that's what happens. People in my family, they get cancer, they die early. My mom's mom had died at 50. So I just set out on this course thinking I'm not going to have a long life. I might as well enjoy it because,
And
there was
did your mother
trauma.
survive or no?
She did. Yeah. So it was one of the craziest cancer surgeries that they did. They still have all over her files. Do not delete any of this. It's insane. But they basically ended up removing the entire right side of her face. So yeah. So they peeled off the skin and dug everything out, all the tissue, all the bone, her eye, her palate, everything from the brain down. She ended up having, honestly, I've lost count at this point. It's probably in the upwards of 30 different surgeries. She's still alive today. It's a miraculous story. But really, it's funny because my journey kind of started with that initiation, as a very, very small child being thrown into this world of sickness, doctor care, surgeries, and all these other things, which I'm so grateful for, right? We talk about in the alternative world, those are the situations where you want that kind of standard of care. But since then, and this was 30 plus odd years ago, her health has taken a big degradation. And so as being her healthcare advocate and going through my own journey, which I'll share in a second, like I've learned like we need people to advocate for like our own healthcare journeys and also be there for other people's like in their healthcare journey to advocate for them as well. And when I say healthcare, I just mean health, not the actual, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. You need someone on the inside with paying attention.
Yes.
Asking every step of the way, is this the best thing to do? Is this in the best interests of my mother or my whoever it is? Yeah, absolutely.
So
that is something that I've seen happen. You probably did too, in your experience. Yeah, where you end up with multiple specialists and multiple doctors, and everyone's got a different drug or a different intervention. And it's like, who's thinking about the person, not just the patient?
And the way like I like to describe my experience with my mom is there was a bunch of silos. So she had like oncology, she had the radiation, she had the surgeons, she had the ear, nose, throat doctor, she had the brain tumor doctor, she had this right? Like so there's so many people, but it was like there is no one person looking at the whole picture. So like you'd get prescribed a medication that was having this other side effect. Well, then this other specialist is trying to deal with the side effect. And then they're issued another specialist to deal with that side effect. And like, it was just such a cluster of information, pills, surgeries, half of which I think were unnecessary, really. But that's not what we're talking about here. But anyhow, so I kind of went on with my life when I moved out of the house, married my husband, moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, was working for tech startups, like loving life, like going out, entertaining clients, like living it up. And like from the outside perspective, like everybody thought that I had this like perfect life. And my husband and I decided that we wanted to raise a family and have children. Well, it took me about 2.5 years to conceive. And so that was really like my first sign that I was like, okay, maybe this lifestyle is like the late nights. I was working 24/7. It was one of these like in this industry where you needed to respond within like 2 minutes of somebody sending you an email. It was very high stress. I was in sales. So of course you're being held to quotas and, it was just that crazy kind of lifestyle. But because we didn't have children, we kind of got accustomed to that. And like, we thought it was our norm. Right. And so I was finally able to conceive, and we had our kids back to back, because I always think like, oh, once the body knows what it's doing and you're healthy enough, like you talk about getting pregnant and you're pregnant again. So yeah. our kids are very close together, which is so amazing. And we decided that somehow like it felt like the Bay Area was no longer, it had lost its luster after we had kids. We thought, why are we raising our kids here? And one of the biggest reasons we moved across country to Nashville, Tennessee was because we thought, okay, we're raising our children in an area where one, they're going to have to be, in sales, an investment banker, or, one of like only a handful of things like, an entrepreneur with a startup or something to get funding. Like there's only a handful of things that they could do outside of like marrying into a relationship that was financially like supportive for them, or like we would have to support them for the rest of their lives. And we wanted to like, it was really important
because it's so expensive out there. Is that what you're saying? Like it's just just impossible. Yeah.
It's impossible to live unless my husband had guys working for him that were like 6 to 8 people to an apartment. These guys were making like several $100,000 a year. Right. So like we didn't want to put our kids in that type of position where they had to stay in a situation that wasn't like natural to them, and kind of give them the world of opportunity. So I think the biggest decision that we made was moving across country. But the decision I didn't make at that point that I should have was to get out of technology sales. And I did it because it was great money. I was really good at it. Moving to Nashville, especially, like it was just easy for me to make that transition. And so we knew we wanted like a slower lifestyle. We wanted to raise our kids in a place that felt more aligned with us. but we didn't make a change when it came to what we were doing for a living. And that's when I got diagnosed with melanoma.
Well, I will say that's a tough call. If you're supporting your family, it's not top of mind to change jobs. But you had noticed, so starting with you had difficulty conceiving, and then were you having other health symptoms as well?
Well, and I think what's interesting is we normalize
the choice to move. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, like there was definitely like weight gain, insomnia, there was like adrenal fatigue, there was all these other factors, but everyone just said like you're a first-time mom, or like you have a newborn at home, or you're breastfeeding, like if you're up every 2 hours, of course you're tired, of course. And somehow all these things like in my mind became normal. Like it was normal to gain weight. It was normal to just be a walking zombie living off of coffee. It was normal to have a glass of wine at night to relax because that's what everybody does, right? Like, and it kind of gets you into these habits of like, you think that's what everybody else is doing, and it gets very normalized.
Yeah, I think that's a big one and I had a similar experience. We have kind of forgotten as a culture what it's like to feel really good, and that it's okay to feel really good. And we've like layered on all of these different assaults on our biology. So of course we don't feel good, but nobody really does. So like, what's the big deal? Yeah. And then in order to feel good, that there are choices that need to be made. So, okay. So keep going. So you had some awareness that your health wasn't great, but it was like, oh, well, no, it's fine. Like, I'm busy. I'm a mom. It's like, I'm supposed to feel tired and zombie-like all the time, which is what they tell us. And then 30 years later, they tell us so we're supposed to feel like that because we're not moms anymore. We're getting older. Like, it's like, okay. Or we're still moms, but we're not, it's like every stage of life, there seems to be a reason why we're supposed to feel gross and terrible and crappy. I reject it, I say.
Not in my world.
Not in our world. Okay. So you get to Nashville, which is an improvement in many ways, but you're still not feeling great, and you're still in a high stress job.
Yeah. And I think, okay, this is the year that I'm 35 years old. I'm going to take control of my health. I have no excuses. My kids are like 3 and 4 at this age. Like, okay, no more mom bod. Like, I'm going to start walking every day. Like, I don't know why I chose walking. Don't know why I didn't go to the gym. Don't know why I didn't do take Pilates class. I don't know. Like, I was just like, I'm going to start walking every day. So I put my headphones in, slathered on that sunblock, and went outside for my 3 mile walk.
Because you're in Tennessee, you got to be SPF to the max every time you leave the house.
To the max. Right. Yep.
Okay.
And I start noticing a growth on my leg. And, I was one of these people where I saw a dermatologist twice a year, was very religious about it, did everything that the dermatologist was told me to do. I had a big spot removed, like this size, big black brown spot on my back when I was 12 years old. And so I'd been under a care of a dermatologist. Because of my mom's history with cancer, we were kind of amplified in our approach when it came to our, health. And so I was like, man, I don't know what that growth is, but I need to go find a dermatologist that's local. And I go get a checkup. She's like, you're fine. We'll take a biopsy. And then you get that dreaded call that's like, you need to come in tomorrow at 7 a.m. to see the doctor.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, well, we know that that's not good news when they're having you come in like first thing in the morning. And so my husband and I went in, and that's when I got told that I was diagnosed with melanoma. And from the second that they said that, Meredith, like I was like, this doesn't make sense. I've been under the care of a dermatologist, seen twice a year, every year since I was 12. I'm 35 years old. How did I get diagnosed with melanoma? And to me, like,
and doing everything that they said,
everything that they
all
said,
their instructions.
Mm-hmm. And I'd made such improvements like in my health and my weight, and I was walking every day. I was spending time outside, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. I thought this was a disease, and I'm sorry if this is offensive, but like old white men got. Like I thought that they got it on their face, and like I didn't know anything else about skin cancer at that point. And so without being like rushed to fear, I was like, I'm going on vacation with my family in a couple weeks. Like, let's talk about the treatment options, but I'm definitely not going to start anything until I'm back from this vacation 30 days from now. And I think they were shocked, like that I wasn't going to like rush into making any like treatment decisions right away. And this is when I felt like most empowered out of like any time I ever have in my life, because this will to live for my children was greater than any diagnosis that I could get. And I started doing my own research, and I go to PubMed for the first time in my life. And I found a study that said in melanoma in particular, because of its irregular borders, you should be cutting around 10 millimeters around the cancer. And I went to my surgeon and I said to her, can we have a conversation about this? How much are you planning to cut off? And she said between 4 to 5 millimeters. And I said, here, can you please read the study? And like, I'm a married woman. I don't care what it looks like. I have young babies. Like, I need you to cut more than you think is even necessary. Like, I want you, like, if we're going to do this, like, let's make sure we get all of the cancer. And so I ended up just having the surgery, no other treatment done, because I was like, okay, this is how we're going to handle this situation. I went into the solution mode, like at that point to survive. And again, this was like very much, I'm still in that conventional mindset, like hadn't really had like my awakening to everything that is going on, and somehow still was very clear and in my approach to how I wanted to do this treatment, because I'd seen my mom go through chemo. I'd seen my mom go through radiation. I wasn't going to put myself or my family through that. It was awful. Like, I didn't want to repeat that generational cycle of putting my children through that kind of trauma. And thankfully, I came across Quantum Biology Collective. So I was having my follow-up visits. And at that point, I think it's either monthly, every other month. Like, it was very often for the first 2 years. And she kept saying to me, like, you need to wear sunblock, you need to cover up, you need to not go outside. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. And if you remember, probably like a year after that diagnosis that I had, they recalled oxybenzone sunblock off the market for causing cancer. And so I went under my cabinet and I pulled out this, what I thought was organic Australian sunblock. And the first ingredient was oxybenzone. No. And I thought to myself, I was making this healthy change of moving to Nashville, walking for 3 miles a day outside, but I was slathering on this toxic stuff, which I think, along with lifestyle things and, seed oils and other things that we now know can, are correlated with skin cancer. But I was slathering on sunblock every single day. And I truly think that was one of the major contributing factors.
Wow. That is so interesting, because you started the walking practice. Walking is outside. You are a diligent patient of lifelong dermatology and doing everything you can to prevent cancer. So you started using the sunscreen every day. And then you ended up with that diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
And thankfully, it was in a location where I personally saw it, right? Like, one of the biggest things with like melanoma is, men get it on their back, or in their private areas, which again, like I look at those things and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would someone get skin cancer in a place that doesn't see the sun, right? Like, breast cancer is one of the most prevalent like cancers we have today. Like, I just wonder, I'm like, that's interesting, right? So as I came across the Quantum Biology Collective and your message, it was the first time in my entire life that I was like, wow, the sun gives life to everything on earth. Of course, we don't need to be scared of the sun. Like, it was the first time that I heard something that actually made sense to me. I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about quantum biology, health. Like, I didn't have a science background. Like, my degree was in philosophy. So all I knew was really like how to question any argument and use logic. And to me, like, it came so easily because of, I think, my background with my mom's cancer, being around surgeries, being around doctors, asking all the questions, being around that industry for so long. It felt like everything that like I had experienced led up to this. Like, now I know what my purpose is in life, and that is to teach people the actual healing ways of this planet. Because had I hadn't had those experiences and maybe get diagnosed with cancer at 35 and just have the surgery and have it removed and move on with my life, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Wow. That's amazing. And I love that you heard the message, and I love that philosophy is very practical. You were trained to seek truth and to recognize it and to ask questions of things that don't make sense. And you're in the perfect position. That's amazing. So, did you quit your job?
Yes. So at the end
point? Because that
yeah,
is
so
a big
within
deal. And I don't like, just saying like, you got to move to the equator. You got to quit your job. Like, these are big, important life changes. So if you did quit your job, that is a huge decision. I'd love to dig into a little, because it's a
so
big deal.
within 6 months, I was no longer employed at that firm. And then I had some time to really had about a year to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And that was when COVID hit. And so, the whole universe kind of changed. And I think now that I was like empowered of like questioning everything, I was like, oh, I don't have to take things at face value. I can do my own research. I may not have a ton of experience in this stuff, but I can read, studies and information and decipher and really like trust that intuition. Like, I guess that's the one thing that we haven't really touched on is there's a lot of like trusting yourself and the guidance that you're getting from God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. That I had drowned that voice for a long time. And now it was amplified. It was like, you're empowered. Just take the time to like slow down and listen. And all of a sudden, I was getting like very, very, very clear messages, unlike anything that I've ever done before. And also had the strength to back up my stance on those messages and the preferences. I was like, I'm no longer saying yes just to be a people pleaser or for it to be convenient. Like, I need to protect my energy, my family's energy, and things just kind of started falling into place. It's the most powerful word in the English language is no.
I love it. It's so true. And it's hard. You don't realize how many little tentacles and threads of energy, connective tissue that we feel responsible for, and we feel like that no might. I'm trying to articulate my experience when I say no. Yeah. And it feels like I'm going to sever them all, and then I'll be, everyone's going to be harmed or something. And yeah, I just had a situation where I had to make a choice about something, and it ended up saying no. And it was like, oh, I mean, when it came time to do it, it was easy, but like getting to the decision was it's a process. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because sometimes we tell our stories and we're like, oh, then I did this and then I did that. And it's like, yeah, but cultivating the internal fortitude and intuition to come to those decisions is no small thing.
Well, and I think because I am very logical and practical too. So it's like I love to philosophize, but I love to like, okay, how could we make this into something you can actually implement? So what we did in our family is we put up a whiteboard and we said, what are our family ethics and values? And for 2 weeks, we left this whiteboard up. And anytime you thought of a value that was important to you, you would go and write it up on this board. And after the 2 weeks was done, the four of us had written a lot of different things. But what I noticed was a lot of similar themes. And
how old were your children? I'm just curious when you did this exercise.
Maybe 7 and 8.
Okay.
So, I love it. Yeah.
So you're all in there. People, they would just have an idea. They walk by. They'd write up.
You just jot it up. Like adventure, fun, right? Friends, love, right? All the different things. We had so many things, but I noticed certain themes. And so what I did was I narrowed down all the things that were written on this whiteboard to 5 key principles. And I had an artist make a custom artwork for me, and we hang it up right outside of our garage door. So we look at it every time we exit and enter our house. And this is our way that we make decisions. If it does not meet 3 out of the 5 core values for the Hansen family values, the answer is an automatic no.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And I love that, because I do feel a little bit of your corporate background coming into play, right? Like this is like
totally
like a strategic planning exercise. I've been there.
Yeah.
But why not apply it to the family? That's brilliant.
Right? Everybody's needs and values get heard. Like they're overlapping themes. We all agree on that. It doesn't mean it can't get revisited. Maybe we revisit it now, but like, ours is like health, community, love, safety, right? And adventure. And if like those are the things that are valuable to us right now, and it's really easy when you apply this principle to say yes or no to things, because at the end of the day, it's not personal. But if I don't feel like safe, or if I don't feel like loved or in community, like it's going to be a no. And that's because it's not aligning with my core value. And so you can kind of take like that spiritual aspect and apply it like practically to your everyday life.
Absolutely. I love this. I'm the same way. I'm like, okay, but what does this mean in the real terms? And these, sort of ethereal, like, oh, my intuition and this and that. No, it can be extremely practical. And I like to coach people about that with their businesses too. And it's like, this is your business. So if it doesn't align, like if you get nauseous going on social media, then let's build a strategy where you don't need to do that, right? Like you're allowed to craft the experience that you want to have in this world. And that is living in alignment with who you are and what you want. And which is an extremely practical way forward. Love it. What a beautiful thing to do for your family and to show your children how to do that. I love that.
Thank you. Well, I think it's just showing up and telling them it's okay to say no. It's okay to question things. Like I want to raise independent thinkers. I want them to learn how to think, not to memorize things, which is why I homeschool my children. And you come across my kids, they can look you in the eye, they can have a conversation with you. Like they're wild and free. We have a couple acres at our lake house, and they're like climbing the trees in the forest, building forts and doing all these things. Like they're the happiest kids. Like I look at that and I was like, my whole journey was worth it just so my children can be children and have this amazing childhood that maybe I didn't get to experience, but I get to like live vicariously through them, like seeing how carefree and happy and wild they are.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I know there's nothing brings joy like watching children be children especially outside, right? Like there's just, I don't know. It is truly one of the most joyful experiences a person can have, I think. Watching children like run around and climb trees and jump in the water and just enjoy their childhood. And I love too, because, you know, what I'm also hearing, it's like, I think sometimes we feel afraid to change tracks in life, or we are changing tracks and we feel like, I don't know anything about this new, you know, I'm doing this instead of that. And so I'm starting from zero. And what I hear that you did that I really like to remind people is that there are always transferable skills and experiences, right? And I'm hearing you like take some really great stuff from your years in corporate life. And like, for me, it's like God or our higher power will like take whatever you have to offer and make it relevant and useful in the new path. And I notice you doing that. I love it.
Well, I think if I were to hear what you said is like, you can always reinvent yourself. It's never too late, right? Like, so our path isn't predetermined. Like, you have free will. And so I think the biggest thing that most people have a fear about, and I had this fear too until a few years ago, is the fear of being really seen. And and I think, well, why is that? Well, am I living authentically? Am I living my life honestly, right? Am I living my life with integrity, meaning like how I feel on the inside, I'm living outwardly, right? Like, so being a people pleaser, like that to me is the definition of maybe not living with integrity, right? You're making yourself small. I played small for a really long time because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. Like, that wasn't me living with integrity. And once I kind of flipped that switch of that fear of being seen, I was like, I deserve to be loved. Every single person in this universe deserves to be loved, but I deserve to be loved for who I am, not who I'm pretending to be. So as a people pleaser, like, that wasn't the true and honest and authentic me. And so if I deserve love, true love, I have to show who I am. And with that really came a lot of strength to make some of these decisions in life of like, okay, if this is in alignment with me, I have to live with integrity. I have to say no.
Yes. And then I think that opens us up to being able to receive that love and to be seen, because we know, oh, they're loving the real deal. They're not loving a version that I'm pretending to be to not make anyone mad or something.
Exactly.
And so this inner growth, this spiritual growth came from really an exploration into your physical health, because it's all connected, right? Like, you didn't start out to have a spiritual awakening. You started out to make sure that you didn't get sick and that you didn't, that you dealt with your cancer.
Well, I started following like alternative health communities, and this was like all during COVID, right? Like, and so this was several months after like COVID, I would say the summer right after COVID. And I was like, oh, cold plunging. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, there's these people that are doing fasting. Okay, that's interesting. So I came across this like spiritual community, and they were like, come to this retreat. And I was like, okay, like I'll go. And I show up and they're like, we're going to do a 3-hour breath work, like a holotropic, like breath work. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. And, but sure. Like, I've had lots of trauma, right? I was like, yeah, I'll try it. I'll try anything. This isn't like popping a pill or taking a drug. Like, this was like a natural thing that you could do with your breath. And I had the most amazing journey. At first you're like doing it and you're like, nothing's happening. I'm not doing it right. And then all of a sudden, like, there was this amazing vision that I had, and literally life changing. Like, I picked up the phone and called my husband, and I was like, okay, like I got a very clear vision about what my mission is on this earth. And like, I need your support. Like, can we sit down and talk about it? And I remember flying home and we sat down, we opened a bottle of wine and we had the best conversation. I would say, like, we've been together 22 years now. Like, of our entire relationship, it was like that night. I was like, these are my hopes and my dreams. These are my goals. Like, this is the example I want to set for the kids. Like, this is an example that I want to set to them, like around love and family and community and all these things. And my husband was like, yes, like, and he shared his goals and dreams with me. And it honestly felt like a recommitment, like not only to ourselves, but to each other, because we were so supportive of each other's journeys. And that's when his journey started too. And even though he wasn't going through the same, like, kind of personal growth and work that I was working on at that point, like, somehow it sparked something in him to start down his path and his journey. And together, like, it just felt like we were unstoppable.
Oh, that's so beautiful and important. Like, it's to have a partner who gets it and who is on the ride with you makes a really big difference.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we're going to homeschool the children. He's like, that's really scary, but okay. He's like, can we
like,
just
I'm going all the way? So how's that going?
So good.
Homeschooling.
So good. And by the way, you question yourself the whole way. You're like, am I doing the right things? Like, and as the children get older and smarter and, I just focus on knowing that you can learn lots and lots from reading books and information. But I also love to couple it with like experiential things. Like, for instance, this weekend was President's Day weekend. And so we went to New York City to see the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, and we saw the play Hamilton, right? Like, so it's, people think like homeschooling is like you're sitting at a desk working all day long. Well, yes, that's part of it. Everybody needs to do math and be able to read and write at the end of the day. But like, it doesn't have to be as difficult as you think it is in your head. Like, it's
Right.
actually pretty simple.
Yes, it's true. I interviewed a woman during COVID. I did a little series when the lockdowns were happening and all of a sudden our kids were home all day. So I just like did Facebook Lives with people who knew how to do that. And I interviewed this mom who homeschooled. I think she had like 5 children. And she was like, yeah, we do school from 9 till 12 and then they go outside.
Yeah.
Like the older one goes fishing and the younger ones do this. And they, they had a big property and in a rural situation. And it was just like, yeah. And they're like ahead of all of the milestones according to the, where they're supposed to be from the state law of whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. That's actually. So I hear what you're saying. Like, yeah, you just do it. It's not school, but at home. It's a different experience.
Well, and like, we take light breaks, right? So we sit outside for sunrise every single morning, no matter like what the weather is outside. And we do our morning prayers together and we read together, like as a family. And then we go inside and we eat and we do a couple things. And then we go for our barefoot walk, like around the block. Then we do a couple, a little bit more of work. And then we go for our 3-mile family walk. Like, we're so circadian, like aligned now, and we get the flexibility to do that as a family. And then like gymnastics and sports and other things that my kids are doing, they're doing that in the afternoon hours instead of the night hours, right? Like, so they're home by 4 or 5. We're having dinner together. We're getting our blue blockers on. We're spending that time together as family before bed. Like, I remember having them doing activities till like 8 o'clock at night. We'd all be cranky, exhausted, hungry. Like, it was just, we were all going crazy. And for what? Yeah. Like, when you're homeschool, you can have all the time that you want. You can put sports activities in the morning. You have so much flexibility to do what you want to do to like align your schedule with like our circadian rhythm and how we're meant to like ancestrally live, right?
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, it's true. The scheduling is, it's crazy. My yeah, I'm on a board in this school district and we meet once a month and I wear my glasses and no one says anything. My kids are like, oh God. But yeah, we leave sometimes that meeting goes till 9 p.m. and I'm leaving and like there's kids playing basketball. And the moms are waiting outside in the hall and like they're not done till 9:30. And oh my God. What? But yeah, it's when you're in school till 3:30 and then the way that our culture is set up, it's not optimized. So let's circle back to that because you found the circadian biology world, the quantum biology world, and you've like really integrated those principles into your life. So you just told us a little bit about your day. Like, how did that start out for you, and how has your health been since integrating a circadian optimized lifestyle?
I think the biggest change was my emotional health. And I know that's going to sound weird because we were just talking about the C word, cancer. But honestly, like what I found was the biggest change was spending more time outside. Like, so I always tell people, I'm like, what can you do today outside? What can you do that you have planned today outside? So whether it's, like doing a walking meeting with your boss outside instead of sitting like in the office, taking your coffee break outside, like where can you open a window, right? Like I felt this rush of energy when I started waking up with the sun. Like I was one of these people that always used an alarm clock, was staying up super, super late, had insomnia, would always wake up between 2 and 3 in the morning. And all of a sudden, we started watching the sunrise and blocking blue light at night. And all of a sudden, I was like a different person. It was like, okay, well, obviously being out in the sunlight makes me feel good. So I want more of that. Like, right, you get that dopamine rush and you're like, more of what feels good. Okay, being out in the sun feels good. So all of a sudden, I'm tanning my skin again, and we're buying a lake house so we could spend more time outside, barefoot in the woods and in the water. And I mean, it was this cascade of, okay, we can build our perfect life. Like we can literally build a life around how we want to live. And somehow I think living in California would have never given us that freedom. But making that big change, moving to Nashville, all of a sudden we're like, oh, we could do anything. Like it felt like this permission to make whatever life decisions we wanted. Like, I don't know. I know that sounds kind of weird, huh? It kind of sounds weird as
No,
I'm saying
that
it.
makes
But
total sense. And I think it's another really important point to bring up is that, yeah, we feel like if this is the way things are, this is the way things have to be. And it's like, whether it's in the way our lives are structured, our businesses are structured, yeah, we are the architects. We can redesign anything at any moment. And if it feels impossible where we are, like, okay, well, maybe it's somewhere else, but it's possible. Like all the things are possible. And I love that you leaned into that and made it real.
yeah, and what's funny is, so my husband was very skeptical. He's like like skin type 1, right? He's like red beard, very blonde hair, very white see-through skin. And he was like, how are we not going to wear sunblock? And I'm like, we're just going to test this. Like we're going to, watch the sunrise. We're going to go for our UVA walk every morning, right? Our body has all these internal processes, right, to protect you from the sun. We're going to listen to this information and we're going to test it. So I remember it was like 101 degrees. We were at this water park. It was black asphalt. It was so hot outside. Our 2 kids are very, very fair skinned as well. And he goes, "We're not putting on sunblock today." And I'm like, "Nope." I go, "But any sign of us like getting pink or red, like we'll get, we'll take a little break or whatnot." We spent all day at this water park, Meredith. We were going to bed that night, and my husband goes, "I cannot believe we're not burnt to the crisp." And I'm like, "Huh, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?"
Isn't that interesting?
And that made him a believer.
Building up your ability to be in the sun over time. Your skin was preconditioned. You knew how to do sensible sun exposure. And it's like, for super fair-skinned people, even a redhead, outside all day, and it's like, you're fine.
Yeah, it was this proof of like, okay, this stuff is not like woo-woo. This stuff is real. Like, we're testing it on ourselves. We feel the best we've ever felt. We're in the greatest shape of our life. Like, and I feel so fulfilled too, like emotionally, spiritually fulfilled of like teaching this information to other people. There's nothing that brings me more joy than talking about this and meeting all the interesting people in our community. Like you and I were talking about before we started this podcast, is like, it is some of the best people in this community. Like everyone's so loving and supportive and so passionate about what they do. It's just the best.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's like when because I've made some choices to veer off the off the main path. And it's like, once you do and you're off, on your tangent, then you're surrounded by other people who also made that choice. And so there's a sense of freedom, I think, amongst people who, because they're like, yeah, I did the weird thing. I did the hard thing. And like, here I am, it's all fine. And yeah, we have like a bigger purpose guiding us. And we're all like on the same page with that. And so I love, because so now what's coming to fruition on your journey with this is an in-person retreat, which is coming up June 2025 in Tennessee. So you and Carrie Bennett have put this together. Like, tell us about that, how it came to be, what it's going to be like.
Yeah, so I think after COVID, we were all kind of craving that human connection, and this QBC was just such a small community, and we had known all these people and built these friendships and relationships, but yet never met anybody in person. And so I was up in the Detroit area seeing an explant specialist to get my implants taken out. And I was like, "Carrie, I'm close to you. I'm going to come by and let's have a coffee." And her and I got talking. It was so great because we'd known each other for a couple years now. And we're like, we've never seen each other in person. And I go, "Man, just feels like we need to put some kind of event together to have everybody in the same place." And as we all know, like, we are energetically connected. I'm like, how magical would it be if we all came together like in person? And that's where this idea of this in-person retreat came to be. And we spent like a really good 6 months like looking for the perfect location that was like circadian friendly, and finally found this like old reclaimed rock quarry that's on 160 acres right outside of Nashville. So it's like close to a major airport, but yet just far enough. It's got this beautiful waterfall and this huge barn, and we're like, yes, we can get some of the smartest people, like smartest minds in this industry together, ask them to talk about something they've never talked about publicly before. So this is going to be like a very unique kind of approach to what people are going to talk about, and get everybody in one room with like, slide away doors so the barn is open to the outside with water running there. And we have some really beautiful, like really quantum aligned vendors that are coming to kind of showcase and sell some of their products and bring different tools that people might not necessarily get to experience in their day-to-day life. And so it's just we've been curating and working on this for like over a year now, just to make it like super, super special. But very, again, like aligned with our principles and like everything that we stand for.
I love it. I'm so excited for this. I think it's amazing what you're doing. And yeah, there's nothing like in-person connection. And when you're involved in something that's like really, really not mainstream, the technology is a beautiful thing, right? Because we can be connected across all the geographies and find each other. But at the same time, yeah, then to have a real life opportunity to be in each other's physical presence is just so profound. So that I think it's going to be just a gorgeous event. And so thrilled that what you and Carrie have put together. And I highly encourage everybody to go. So the website is, what's the website? I will put it in the show notes for sure. And Carrie and Oksana have very kindly offered a 10% discount for the code QBC. If you put that when you check out. And it is, I should have put it up.
It's carriebewellness.com/retreat.
Okay. So you can just find it through Carrie's website.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Carrie Wellness /retreat. Put QBC in. It's at the end of June 2025 for a couple of days. And yeah, it's going to be magical and fun. And I feel like it'll be one of those things that will just, for everyone who's able to attend, will like just be a big battery recharge in whatever way you need.
I was talking to Carrie this morning, and she said that she just had this vision of like, we were at the retreat and there was just smiles everywhere and the energy was insane. And I was like, yes, like this is going to be one of those, like, it feels surreal because all of these people like that we've been aligned with, like, we've kind of, I'm going to say this for myself, not other people. Like I've kind of felt weird, right? Like I'm the odd man out amongst all my friends and all these people talking about the sun and the healing power of the earth and all these things. And now I'm like, I get to be in a room full of all these people, like with the same mindset and like pick their brains, like behind the scenes, like pick their brains of these really, really smart people with all these interesting views on the world and our body and how everything works and coincides together. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Tell me some of the speakers.
So we have Stephen Hussey, Danielle Hamilton. We have Sarah Pugh, Sarah Kleiner, and I'm sure there's a lot more.
That sounds amazing. Well, they're right there. Yes.
They're on the website.
Yeah, no, it's just a handful sneak peek. Yes. So I really, really want to encourage anybody who's listening. If you felt like that little like jolt or impulse of like, oh my God, that sounds so fun. Like do whatever you need to do to get there. Because it will really be worth it. And these opportunities, they don't happen all the time. So putting on a live event is no small it's no small thing. It's a really big endeavor. So I think it's really important that we support them and show up if at all possible, because they really matter. And it's, I think, important to the growth of this message, to the growth of this community and all of it.
Thank you, Meredith. And I guess like, I just want to say, like, I think everyone has their own definition for like quantum health. But for me, like, I really look at it from like a spiritual, emotional, and physical standpoint. And so the experiences that we've kind of curated at this retreat are going to touch each of those areas. And so we'll have some great speakers, and then we'll go outside and maybe do a breath work. We'll have another speaker. We'll go outside and jump into an ice bath. We'll have another speaker, and Maybe we'll go do yoga, right? So there's going to be like a sound bath. Like there's going to be all these experiences that are going to kind of help you to integrate the learnings and the information, and then also do things together as a group of people with like bonding things. Like if you've never done an ice bath, like this is the best way to experience it when you have other people around you like cheering you on. The weather's going to be great. It's going to be hot outside, so you're going to want to jump in that ice bath. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be this like stuffy, you're sitting in a conference room learning material. Like it's going to be some amazing speakers, but it's going to be some amazing kind of transformative experiences, I'll say as well.
Fun, fully immersive. Sounds so good. And yeah, and I think these types of events are leading the way into a paradigm where we stop with all of the compartmentalizing of physical health versus mental health versus emotional health versus psychological versus spiritual. It's like, yeah, from a quantum biologic perspective, it's all the same. It's, and I hear so many stories of, yeah, like something starts, you have a physical symptom that leads to a spiritual awakening, or you have a spiritual awakening that leads to wanting to take better care of your physical body, like it's, so I think this idea of honoring that with the way that you structured the event is, the way forward, the way of the future. Any other last thoughts, Oksana?
No, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. It was truly, truly an honor to go, to hear you share that journey and to be able to articulate the different choice points that you faced and how you navigated them. And I really love the message that you're leaving with people of that, like we can make our lives different. It's possible. And whatever that looks like for each person, but you're a living example of that. And that's really, really powerful. So much gratitude to you and your lovely husband. Good for him for getting on the ride.
Thank you. We truly say, like, we truly think that we are living heaven on earth, and that is within reach for everybody. So,
oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for being here, Oksana.
Thank you.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology Certification, a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.